Hi, Thomas.
Hello.
Where do we start? Because we have slides, too. We have all sorts of cool stuff. So I think what I want to do is just ask you when you started writing this book, because you're an art historian.
I am.
And you've decided to write a novel, and your French publishers are here as well.
Yeah,
which,
absolutely.
Hi. Wait, there you are. Yeah, bonsoir. But let's talk about when this started for you, because this is not exactly what folks would have expected from you, art historian, known particularly well in France.
Yeah, sure. It is true. I am an art historian, so I wrote and published a lot of academic books on very different subjects. But 12 years ago, I had a personal ordeal, a personal trial in my life. And I don't want to say too much, but what I can say that it created on me the wish of inventing an ideal little girl. And this little girl was Mona.
Right.
Mona was a super cute little girl, very funny, very intelligent, very smart, very modest. And that was really the basis of the novel. And then, of course, there is the presence of art history. But I would say that the starting point was not really dealing with art history. That was more personal than that.
Right. Out of curiosity, how many in the audience have read Mona so far? Okay. So we all agree, those of us who have read it are going to be spoiler-free for everyone else because the reading experience is spectacular. We've got a multi-generational family story. We've got this really excellent little girl, Mona. And I will say her grandfather, Henry, is pretty cool. Listen, for a grandfather, I give him props. But this book, one of the ways I describe it for our booksellers is it's a man called Ove in many, many ways. It's that big emotional landscape, right? Like the art is amazing, and I'm delighted we have it as a framework. And we're going to come back to frameworks. But the fact that we're grounded in this family is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, when I was a child, I had a very strong relationship with the generation of my grandparents.
Right.
Not especially my grandfather, because I didn't know him very well, but the generation of my grandparents. And it is true that I would say the spine of the novel is this very special and very intense relationship between Mona and Henri, the grandfather, who is full of aura, very charismatic, full of knowledge. But between them, there is no hierarchy. There is something which is really horizontal, because he's able to understand what Mona feels, and he doesn't consider her as an adult, but is very sensitive to a hidden maturity. And in the other hand, Mona is not really impressed by her grandfather, while he is someone very impressive.
Right. Okay, but it's Henry's idea to take Mona to the museum once a week, and he's doing it in response, actually, to something that is very scary for everyone. We need to talk about what's happening to Mona's health.
Yeah, that's the pitch of the book. Mona could become blind. At the beginning of the novel, she go through a very bad episode. She loses her sight for more than 1 hour, and her parents are really scared because they think, okay, she could become blind. And the grandfather of Mona has an idea. He thinks, okay, if the tragedy happens, and you will have to reach the very final page of the book to know if she turns blind or not. Okay, no spoiler tonight. But a grandfather thinks, okay, she could keep in herself the beauties of the world. To do that, he will conduct in front of one artwork each Wednesday. And they will together dive into this artwork, and they will try to understand the message, the takeaway, the philosophical distillate of the artwork they are in front of.
So this is where I say I sort of buried the lead a little bit. Now you understand, though. We've got the epic family story. We've got love. We've got fear. We've got joy. We've got all of the things that you want in a really epic story. Plus, then we get the art, right? Which is why Mona's Eyes is our book of the year, because it scratches all of the itches that you want to scratch. When you're reading a novel like this and you've got great characters, and I was deeply invested in how things were going to pan out. I'm not the only person in this room who's already read the book, and you were deeply invested too, because you read the same book I read. But Mona also works on so many levels. I mean, you start with Botticelli, you bring us through to, hold on, I made a note, through to Pierre Soulange, who is present day, Ish? Present day-ish.
Pierre Soulange is dead for a few years now, and is one of the major actors of the French abstraction.
Okay, so you're giving us how many centuries of art in this 52 weeks?
6.
Okay. Let's do the math for a second. We get this excellent family, multiple generations in the excellent family, and 6 centuries of world art.
And there is always a hinge between what is explained about art history and the different plots of the novel. I hope that this articulation between the fictional part and art history is really stricken for the reader, because that's a way for me to show that art, creation, painting, sculpture can serve life. And I want to I would say to materialize the concrete demonstration of this idea. Art can serve life.
Right.
Art is what makes life more interesting than art.
Okay, so we all have more questions, but we also have slides.
Sure.
And I think this is a really good moment to turn to the art and let the art do some of the storytelling. Harry, you have the key. All right. So there you go. There's your first.
Yeah. For example, here this is a painting by a woman painter who is not very well known, even in France. Her name is Marguerite Gérard. And this painting is a new acquisition of the Louvre. So that, just a little story about that. When I started the book, this painting wasn't at the Louvre. I have discovered it during the writing. And I was so flabbergasted by the quality of this painting, I decided to replace another painting by this one in one chapter. And this painting is incredible because it is full of details. And to understand the deep meaning of what it shows, you have to dive into it. And this is not the major character of the painting which is really relevant or meaningful. This is a detail in a corner. Because, you know, the title of the painting is The Interesting Pupil. But when you are looking at it, you must check, you must see that she is a pupil who is interested by something. So the title, there is a gap between the title and what you see. And you can solve the problem if you dive in one detail in the corner on the left, where there is a ball with a reflection, and in this reflection there is a little scene, and this scene depicts the artist herself with a master in a back, looking at her. So we understand the title, The Interesting Pupil. And the funny thing is that this master is Fragonard, a very well-known painter. And that's funny because in the other corner, there is a kind of collaboration between Marguerite Gérard and Fragonard, because we know now that the animals were painted both by the hand of Marguerite Gérard and the hand of Fragonard, like a little collaboration in this painting. That's really awesome.
I love that story.
Yeah.
I also
Me
love the
too.
fact that you slid it in there. You were just like, you know what? We're just going to edit as we go. We're just going to swap this painting in. The idea that our art can evolve with us,
Yeah.
not just in terms of style, but also subject and the personages behind it kind of thing. I think
Absolutely.
that's really important.
That's super important because we have often, I would say, a shallow, superficial idea of what art is. And we think, okay, with forms, colors, and symbols and composition, this is enough to feel something. But clearly, sometimes we need to have more information. I don't think that there is an opposition between knowledge and emotions. I think they are always combined in brain, okay? So that I hope when you will read Mona's Eyes, you will feel that all the informations the grandfather is able to provide will serve your own emotion. That's not, there is not a contrast between those two notions, but really, really a complementarity.
Okay, should we go to the next painting? We should go to the next painting.
Of course.
Harry, thank you.
That's
Okay.
another atmosphere.
Cows. Wait.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am very, very moved by this painting. This is one of my favorite ones. This is a painting by another woman artist, Rosa Bonheur. She's French and she's very well known in the United States because maybe you know. The reception of Rosa Bonheur during the 19th century in France was a bit controversial. But she had very strong collectors in the United States in the second part of the 19th century. So that you have a lot of beautiful Rosa Bonheur in your collections and you have to enjoy them. But this one is at the Orsay Museum in Paris. And first, as you can feel, when you are in front of this earth, you have the impression to be in front of chocolate mousse, you know? That's so well depicted. That's so smooth. You feel like eating it. And of course, in the novel, Mona keeps on thinking, okay, I have the impression to have a dessert in front of me. But the main subject of this painting is, of course, the animal condition, the animal cause. Rosa Bonheur was fully involved in this cause. She was able to understand that between humanity and animality, there shouldn't be a hierarchy. And she was one of the first person in France to defend the animals against human cruelty. In this painting, the beast is spin, and so that the eye is dilated, and that's very interesting because you have the impression that the cow tries to catch your attention and to create empathy with you. So that this is a lesson of the grandfather in front of this painting. The animal is your equal. And just a very last word about that. The animal cause, the animal condition, is now very present in the social debates. 3 decades ago, that was not the case at all. When I was a teenager and when I was speaking about my sensitivity toward animal cause, I was considered as a naive teenager, you know. And now that's something very serious. And it is thanks to our struggles. But to conduct such struggles, you need to create visibility. And who are the main actors of visibility? Of course, there are the scientists, people who are committed and so on. But the artists, because they materialize images of concepts, of things, of causes, of person, they are the actors of visibility. Thanks to them, we are sensitive to new causes, and among them, the animal cause.
Okay, before we go to the next slide, though.
Sorry, I was a bit long.
No, that's fine. Okay. Anyone in this room will tell you that's the fun stuff, right? When we get to go behind the scenes, this
Yeah.
is what people are here for. But I have an audience question that I'm going to move in.
Sure.
What was your favorite part of writing this story?
Yeah, there was something. Mona is about blindness. It's about darkness. There is something which is a bit melancholic. You know, Michelangelo, the famous sculptor, he has a fabulous line in one of his poems. He says, "Melancholy is my joy." Why? Because through melancholy we can create a kind of depth, a kind of thickness in our existence. And what I appreciated a lot when I was writing Mona's Eyes was the contrast between sorrow, sadness, and light, moments of joy. Every time I was able to create this kind of contrast, and sometimes there are very comic moments, that was for me a great source of joy.
So, the jacket. Let's talk about the jacket for a
Sure.
second. Shall we all talk about this book jacket? Because it stops us all in our tracks, and don't pretend it doesn't. But we're wondering, where did the idea for the informative and stunning book jacket come from?
The man is here, so I will speak for him, but he is here. The story is awesome. Yes, in a very in a few words. I didn't know anybody at Albin Michel, my French publisher, but Nicolas de Cointet, who is here tonight, received the manuscript, and when I saw him the very first time, he told me, "Okay, your text is a fabulous novel, so I think that you shouldn't put any reproduction in the text itself. Because if you do that, that will appear at the coffee table book, and that's not that. That's a novel. But maybe we can imagine something else together, something like a map, like the imaginary museum of Mona, and this is the jacket, so that you can use the jacket as a support for the reading, but." If you don't want to see the reproductions, if you just want to dream the works by reading the descriptions, this is possible. So there is, I would say, a free experience of reading, but that this brilliant idea was thanks to Nicolas, and I want, of course, to say thank you to him. And when he showed me that, I looked at him, saying to myself, he's a pure genius. And after that, we had a very good lunch with a lot of wine in a French restaurant.
Okay, we have more slides coming, but I'm sneaking in another question that's really good. How and why did you match the art to the book's chapters?
Once again, the main goal of Mona's Eyes consists in saying that art is what makes life more interesting than art. For me, art history is not a circle closed on itself. This is something which is likely to enhance our existence. Okay? So that if you are very, very careful, you can see that there is a lesson which is given in front of each artwork, and in the chapter after, okay, in the chapter which is just after the lesson, there is a concrete application of this lesson.
Right.
Sometimes it is very direct, sometimes it is not, but you can read again the book with this idea in the head, and that's very funny because you will understand the system.
Okay, should we go to the next? Let's go to the
With
next
pleasure.
slide, Harry. Okay.
So, of course, everybody knows Van Gogh. I don't know the pronunciation in English. How do you say Van
Van
Gogh?
Gogh.
Van Gogh, okay, that's cool.
A little bit of Boston in there, sorry.
I don't know. Do you remember this song by Freddie Mercury, by Queen, I'm going slightly mad. Do you remember it? Is anybody able to sing it? No? Okay. That's exactly the mood of Van Gogh. In this painting, he's not completely mad, but this is like a border. This is the limit, so that madness is under control, but it is present. This is why this is so moving. And another thing, Van Gogh was born in 1853, and he died in 1890. And this painting was done just a few weeks before he committed a suicide. Okay? So that's a bit like a legacy before his death. And there is something absolutely incredible. In parallel, a very famous French poet had exactly the same life, Arthur Rimbaud. Rimbaud was born in 1854 and he died in 1891. They didn't meet. That's sad, because that would have been so incredible to imagine a conversation between Van Gogh and Rimbaud. But even if they didn't meet, I think that we can say that Van Gogh is the Arthur Rimbaud of painting, and Rimbaud is the Van Gogh of poetry.
Okay. Should we go to the next slide?
With pleasure.
All right.
This is one of your biggest stars. You recognize her or not? We see, of course, the fabulous Georgia O'Keeffe. And yesterday, I was in Chicago, so that I saw one of biggest landscapes with a lot of clouds in the staircase of the Art Institute of Chicago. That's just awesome. But this painting, which is one of the very few paintings of by Georgia O'Keeffe we have in France, is incredible, because that's a bit a commonplace. That's a bit a cliche about Georgia O'Keeffe, but it is true. The landscape is like a body, so that you can feel the cosmos, the reality, as a flesh. What does it mean? It means that, in my opinion, there is not a real difference between human person and their environment. There is no people and the background. There is a continuity. There is a continuity between me, the microphone, you, the seat, and everything else. And when you are in front of a Georgia O'Keeffe painting, you can feel that. There is a continuity between bodies and environment. And that means that, okay, the cosmos is a wall.
You've got 52 paintings, 3 fabulous museums, a city known for its art. How do you winnow it down to 52 choices?
Yeah, it's true that there are 3 fabulous museums, and especially there is the Louvre. And if you feel like, choosing a gift at the Louvre, for example, a jewel for Christmas, this is very easy.
We know their password.
So, yeah, you have the password.
We do.
So don't hesitate. You can take Mona's eyes and a jewel at the Louvre, okay? Now, that was difficult to narrow down, of course, but there are several elements of answer, but I would say just one. I wanted the selection to be consistent with the character of Henri, the grandfather, because he's mainly in charge of choosing the works. And who is Henri? Henri is a man of 80 years old, so with a very classical knowledge, but in the same time, he's someone who is able, to step aside, to remain curious of everything, to feel the margin. So it is true that there are a lot of very expected masterpieces, a lot of very iconic artists. There is Botticelli, there is Picasso, there is Frida Kahlo, there is Jean-Michel Basquiat, who are very, very well known. But in the other hand, sometimes he chooses, and I choose, of course, through him, artists who are more in the margin. Just to give you a concrete example, when Henri wants to introduce Mona to the story of photography, instead of choosing a very famous French pioneer of photography, he focuses on Julia Margaret Cameron. I don't know if you know her, but she's a fabulous photographer. In the 19th century, she was able to introduce the notion of blur as a criterion, an aesthetic criterion in photography. And the very last word about her, she had a niece who was a very famous writer, Virginia Woolf. And Virginia Woolf was the woman who was able to rehabilitate Julia Margaret Cameron at the beginning of the 20th century.
And there was a moment, too, where a lot of her photographs were on covers of books. I mean, everyone here has seen a Cameron photograph without necessarily knowing it. I have a Norton Critical Jane Eyre that is definitely a Cameron photo that's been licensed. But the idea that art can represent who we are over time and that it speaks to, like this particular body of art in this book really does speak to who Henry is, and everyone's going to have their own 52 weeks, right? I mean, I was delighted when you included Turner and you included Pollock. There's a Frida Kahlo in here. I mean, of course, there's Degas and there's Manet and Monet and all of the folks that you might expect, but it's more than just a survey class in a way, because it is so representative of the people in this story. And part of me is wondering, I mean, I understand that you as a writer, of course, you've got this great sense of tension that's happening and you get to play on the page in a way that you don't necessarily when you're writing, when you're in your working life, right, as an art historian, you don't really get to foots the way you do when you're playing with a novel.
When I am fully an art historian, I try. I don't say that I managed to do it, but I try to be really exhaustive and the more objective I can. But when you are writing a novel, of course, this is full of subjectivity and you feel freer. But this is very important to stress it. Mona's Eyes doesn't tend to be a representation of art. Art history should be. Art history is very diverse. That's just an open windows on what it could be. But after that, you have to make your own choice, your own history. There are so many different tracks, so many different paths to write art history. This is just one among others. And I hope that this is well understood, because I don't want Mona's Eyes to appear as something which would claim Western art history as central.
Right.
That's just a path among others.
Well, I mean, you made a very deliberate choice to keep the art in chronological order, though.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is that to help give you a framework so you can wander a little further afield in Henry's head?
Sure, but that's not only that. It is, Mona's Eyes is a coming-of-age novel. So the notion of evolution was very important. Mona, during the novel, will turn from 10 to 11, okay? So I wanted both a chronological travel through art history and this evolution of Mona from the very end of childhood to the very beginning of being a teenager.
Okay. Which brings us to our last slide, because there are two artists I think of from my adolescence, and Keith Haring and well,
that's
Basquiat.
That's very, very powerful, impactful work. And something I really adore in this work. Of course, this is this kind of double mask with this hallucinatory aspect, this aggressivity. That's beautiful. But moreover, there is this black background, which is an allusion to the possible blindness of Mona in the novel. But there is another thing I want to stress about this work. It is preserved at the Pompidou Center, in Paris, which is closed for a few years. I'm sorry about that. But at the Pompidou Center, there is a fabulous masterpiece by Jean-Michel Basquiat, The Slave Market, which is a huge canvas. And Henri doesn't choose the masterpiece, the canvas. He chooses a work on paper. Because very often, works on paper are less considered. They are less legitimate, less prestigious, because they are smaller and because the materiality is more fragile. And in my opinion, there is no hierarchy. When there is a small work on paper that can be as powerful as a big canvas is. And so I think even if it is just a work on paper, that's extremely strong, and we have the impression to dive into the mystery of existence in front of this image.
There's also, I mean, there are a couple of really great Basquiats in Los Angeles at the Broad. The energy on the
energy is
canvas, and then sometimes
awesome.
he's painting on found objects. I mean, the conversation changes. I mean, Pollock did this, right, in the 50s. And it could have happened more for Lee Krasner. I will put my editorializing to the side for a second. But when you look at how art relates to the medium, right, when you move from canvas, or suddenly the canvas is like 3 times the height of the room we're sitting in, the conversation changes, right?
It's true. It's true. But there is something very special in the Jean-Michel Basquiat technique. You know, he was holding a pen, pencil, and so on, as if he were a disabled man, so that he was loading and catching the pen or the pencil. That's extremely interesting, because that's both a bit awkward and strictly virtuose. And that's one of the secrets of his fabulous energy.
And speaking of fabulous energy, we're going to switch gears for a tiny second, because someone's asking, what does a typical writing week look like for you?
Sorry, what?
A writing week. So what are your writing behaviors? How do you?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I prefer the morning, because I am fresh. I need to have a shower to be well dressed. That's, for example, a painter like Kandinsky was always painting very well dressed, because he was considering the practice of painting as something which deserves a kind of dignity. And that's my case when when I am trying to write. But sometimes I can write on a little paper when I want to have an idea and so on. But the morning is clearly my best moment to write.
Okay. Do you have a favorite museum exhibit in New York right now? Have you had a minute to look at anything in New York in the last? We've had you running around for a minute.
No, but last time I was in New York, I went once again to the Metropolitan, and I have to say that I am always very interested by the 19th American section of the Metropolitan.
Yeah.
For example, when you are in front of Winslow Homer, especially the one with this black man on the boat and the sharks around him, that's one of the most incredible icons of the 19th century. And I have to say you are very, very lucky because you can count on very different museums in New York. The Whitney is fabulous. Of course, the Metropolitan, the Guggenheim, the MoMA, the Frick Collection. That's incredible. The Natural Museum, that's absolutely extraordinary.
You've also been talking about paintings too, where the light, it's really difficult to capture light. And we have, especially when you talk about Homer in the American 19th century, and if you think about sort of the Hudson River Valley School, right? Like I think most of us are pretty, at least in this room, we're pretty well versed in that. And if you think about how these painters manage to capture light in a way where the energy on the page is kind of insane.
Yeah. That's crazy because, for example, when you are in front of a painting by Church or by Bierstadt or other artists of the Hudson River School, of the second Hudson River School, the light is not only caught in the painting. You have the impression that the painting is likely to project light in your eyes, and that's, of course, that's the magical aspect of great artists.
Another question: what's the origin of the phrase "I swear on what's beautiful on earth"?
Yeah, that's very personal. That's not something I heard when I was a child, but I was thinking this is both something very common and very original. So that was a nice combination. And it's true that that's one of the biggest lines in the novel. Yeah.
You sort of touched on this, but I'm just going to ask point blank. Did writing this book surprise you?
The success?
No, not just the success. Writing the book itself. I mean, the success is nice.
Sorry.
But like, as you were writing, were you surprised about where you went?
That's a fabulous question. Thank you. Yeah, the answer is yes. Because I was not sure I would be able to feel the sensations of my childhood at the beginning.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And chapters after chapters, I realized that Mona's eyes, which is not autobiographical at all, but was really the concentration of all the emotions of my childhood. And I have just to say one thing about that. It took me a very long time, 10 years, to complete it. So sometime there was a long time before 2 moments of writing. And that gave me the possibility of having fresh eyes on what I wrote a long time ago. And every time I felt that I was likely to cry or likely to laugh,
right.
I told to myself, this is good, I can keep it. But I was very exigent toward myself, and so if there is no emotion, I don't want to keep it. So yeah, that was surprising.
I mean, that is also kind of the point of writing a novel, though, if you think about it, right? I mean, you get the interiority of the characters, we get the arc of their story.
Yeah.
I mean, the art is in a way, it's a very fun bonus. It's a great device. It is a new way to give structure to a story, but ultimately, I was in this for your characters. I mean, that's how, I mean, Henry and Mona, I was just like, Mom and Dad were great, but really, Henry and Mona.
Yeah. Henri and Mona, they have a fabulous relationship, as I had when I was a child with my grandmother. But there are a lot of secondary characters in
Right,
the book. This is
right.
like a little theater. There are there are the friends of Mona. There are the parents, for example, the father of Mona, who is so moving because he's an alcoholic man who tries to do his best to struggle against his own demons, and he's a bit impressed by his stepfather Henri. So there are a lot of characters. There is even a dog, Cosmos, who is so cute, and I hope that this is really a journey through a lot of different interiorities. For example, the character of the doctor who is in charge of Mona is someone with whom I felt a strong connection when I
Right.
was writing it, even if it is purely fictional. But I hope you will meet some good friends.
Are you working on another book?
I will. There will be a new novel in France in 3 months. Am I supposed to say more, Nicolas, or not? I can? Okay. So that will revolve a lot around poetry and the power of poetry. This is a story of a gardener with a little kitten, who is super cute, and a fabulous neighbor in Provence, in the south of France. What does he do? What does he do? I am a bit afraid.
Oh, this is quite okay. Hold
This
on.
is a striptease.
Well,
I will reveal the cover.
right.
Forget it after.
That was not prepared. Oh my God.
That is fabulous.
Forget it.
Okay. Although we did just capture it on video, but you know, these things happen. These terrible things happen when we get excited about books and writers and paintings and people.
No, and then I am writing another book, but which is an academic book on someone I love, one of your most favorite American artists, Mary Cassatt. But this will be an academic book, not for a very large audience.
Well, says you, but also, I mean, I'm watching audience people over and say, see, I'm not the only one who's excited about that. Anyway. But I am going to say thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Thomas Schlesser.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
booksellers. You guys are
Thank you.
amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.